Your number one is electronics. Number two is medical physics. Number three is communication. We start off with electronics first. Okay. For any electronic sensor or any electronic component, you need to understand that there needs to be a sensing device which senses the entire thing. It will pass the information to a processing unit and then show the results on an output device. I think in junior classes, while studying computers, you might have been able to relate to it, right? The CPU used to be your processing unit, right? A sensing device could be anything like a thermistor, a strain gauge, etc. The output device could be LED, right? Could be a monitor screen, a CRO. कोई भी डिवाइस अगर होगा इलेक्ट्रिकल डिवाइस, उसके बाद से एक सेंसिंग डिवाइस हो सकता है. फॉर एग्जांपल अ थर्मिस्टर or an LDR or a strain gauge. These are a few examples of sensing devices. They can push forward their signals to a processing unit, right? And thereby show the results either using an LED, right? Or a monitor screen or a CRO, etc. You need to understand that LDR is basically a light dependent resistor. Now LDR works such that when the light intensity increases, the resistance of the LDR decreases and vice versa. So basically during daytime, your light intensity increases, right? So resistance of the LDR decreases. How is this beneficial? Street lamps work on this exact principle. Okay? During the daylight, the LDR will have a lower share of the resistance and therefore a lower share of the voltage in a series circuit. And when there is a lower share of voltage, the lamps will not light up. The LDR devices will not light up. At night time, its resistance increases to somewhat 1 mega ohm as compared to 100 ohms during the day, which means that it will attract a greater share of the voltage at night and will therefore be switched on automatically. So this could be a circuit for a street lamp, you could say, where the lamp is connected in parallel with the LDR. Moving forward, you need one more thing you need to understand is that the light intensity is not linear. So if you were to draw a graph of the resistance to the light intensity, right? During night, when the light intensity was approximately a small value, the resistance was a very high value and therefore decreases in an inversely proportional fashion. By the way, this is an example of a non-ohmic conductor. Moving forward, there's a thermistor. There are two different types of thermistors. One is a positive coefficient thermistor. One is a negative coefficient thermistor. Right? In a positive coefficient thermistor, when the temperature increases, the resistance also increases. However, in a negative coefficient thermistor, when the temperature increases, the resistance decreases, or vice versa. This, when the question is silent, you will specifically take the negative coefficient thermistor. If the examiner wants you to take the positive coefficient thermistor, he will inform you. He will mention that straight away in the question. एक बात याद रख लेना that there's a thing called piezoelectric transducer. Piezoelectric crystals like quartz, these are used in your watches, have a little complex ionic structure. When the crystal is unstressed, meaning to say in this position, right? The centers of the positive and the negative ions bound in the lattice of the piezoelectric crystal will coincide, meaning to say it's like a sandwich structure. This is just one layer. In a third dimension moving downwards, you could see the positive being neutralized with the negative. When you are applying a pressure, right? When you're applying a pressure to the crystals will distort. Let's say you caused the plates to move, right? Now these positives will also shake alongside, right? Meaning to say your positive ions will not coincide. Let's say all the positives came in here by the application of the pressure, and all the negatives went to the other side. Don't you think the positive and the negative will have a certain potential difference between them? So basically, this is called the piezoelectric effect, and this causes a voltage to be generated. Electrical connections could be made to the crystal if opposite sides of the crystal are coated with a metal. The magnitude of the voltage generated depends upon the magnitude of the pressure applied to the crystal. The polarity of the voltage depends on whether the crystal is compressed or expanded, right? Which means that the increase or decrease in the pressure applied. A sound wave consists of a series of compressions and rarefactions. If the wave is incident on a piezoelectric crystal, a varying voltage across the crystal will be produced. This voltage can be amplified, and therefore the crystal and its amplifier will act as a simple microphone. Strain gauges are used by engineers on walls which may have a crack. What really happens is, let's say this is a wall. And there was a crack seen in the wall. The engineer is gonna put a strain gauge, is gonna fix a strain gauge into this area. Strain gauges will have a certain wire inside a plastic tube. With time, this crack usually increases in size. And when it is increasing in size, it is gonna pull the wire of the strain gauge alongside, which indicates that the crack is opening up. And that is how they detect that it is now the time to rectify the wall or the crack. Strain gauge works on the resistance principle. Resistance is equal to rho L upon A. let's say if a slight change in the wire's length is noticed, right? That would also increase the resistance of the strain gauge. So a little change in the length caused a change in the resistance value, right? I am subtracting this equation from equation 1. And I'm going to get delta R upon rho L upon A. You need to understand that the change in resistance is directly proportional to the change in length of the wire. And that is how the strain gauge works. By the way, this comes in the exam. So the cross-sectional area is assumed to be constant. Next comes in the a potential divider circuit. Now you need to understand that this is a variable resistor. Since this is a variable resistor and it is connected in series with F, depending on the resistance of this sensing device, the output V can be managed. For example, let's say the cell of EMF E and negligible internal resistance is connected in series with a fixed resistor and sensing device of resistance R. I need to know my voltage drop across this resistor. So I'm going to use my ratio theorem. R is the resistance of the resistor. R plus F is the total resistance. And E was the EMF of the entire circuit, would give me the voltage drop at R. So you need to understand that the magnitude of the output voltage at any particular value of resistance R of the sensing device is dependent on the relative values of R and F. For example, if R had a very large value, so it will occupy a greater share of the voltage E, right? EMF E. So if the resistance of R decreases, then output drop across R will also decrease. Sorry. However, connecting the outputs across the fixed resistor would mean that V increases when R decreases. For example, simply, let's say my fixed resistor was 3 ohms. My variable resistor had a range of 3 till 9. Let's say my EMF was 12 volts. Initially, I'm setting up my resistor to 3 ohms. So my resistor R is at 3 ohms. My total resistor would be 3 of this, 3 of R plus 3 of F, right? Into 12. That would give me a value of 6 volts being dropped at R. Moving forward, let's say I have increased my value to 9 volts now. My R has increased to 9 ohms, sorry. 9 ohms. This was already 3. So 9 plus 3 is 12. My resistance was already, my EMF was 12. From here, I'm going to realize that R will now get a share of 9 volts. Don't you think as the resistance of R increased, the voltage drop across it has also increased? Moving forward, next comes the operational amplifier, right? An amplifier is an integrated circuit about having 20 transistors together with resistors. You don't need to learn. You just need to understand that this negative terminal is called the inverting input. This positive terminal is called the non-inverting input. right? It is connected through an external circuit to the positive supply and to a negative supply just to complete the circuit, right? This is a comparator circuit, meaning to say it will compare the voltage value coming at the inverting input and the non-inverting input. And on the basis of that, it's going to give an output value. For example, let's say, by the way, you have the formula of V output voltage at the output is equals to A naught V plus minus V minus. This is the input at the positive, and V minus is the input at the negative terminal. This is the negative terminal. By the way, you need to learn all of this. Right? One more thing you need to understand is that the real operational amplifier, the open loop gain value is usually 10 to the power of 5. Open loop gain is basically the A naught value. This is a constant for these amplifiers. Moving forward, let's say your positive supply line was at 9 volts. This is the negative. Your positive supply is connected to the negative. Your negative supply is connected to the positive part, right? Your supply lines are 9 volts. Right? Your V plus value was 1.4. Your V minus was 1.3 volts. Right? Now you need to understand something. I'm going to simply go with the formula V output is equals to A naught V plus minus V minus. A naught is the open loop gain, which is 10 to the power of 5. V plus has the value of 1.4. V minus has the value of 1.3. If you multiply these values, you get a value of 10,000 volts. Meaning to say, with this difference between the two inputs, these are the two inputs, I'm getting an output voltage of 10,000 volts, which is practically impossible. I'm providing such a small value of voltage and I'm getting such a huge output, right? Which is practically impossible. So what the amplifier does is it will cut or saturate the voltage value at 9 volts, and the amplifier is said to be saturated. My only point is had the supply line being 6 volts and the output voltage was coming out to be greater than 6 volts, so amplifier saturate kar deta. Amplifier would have saturated it at 6 volts. Let's say my output voltage was coming around 5 volts which is a smaller value than this supply line. So it wouldn't have been saturated. For example, I have the supply lines at +6 and -6. My inputs and outputs were this value. V out is equals to A naught V plus minus V minus, right? My A naught was 10 to the power of 5. This is called the open loop gain. My value was 3.652 minus 3.654, right? If you check your answer is coming around to be minus 200 volts, which is still practically not possible because my limit to the amplifier is 6 volt, positive 6 volt or negative 6 volt. It is exceeding that limit. So the amplifier is said to be saturated at minus 6 volts. Now, for example, you need to understand, let's say I'm provided with this condition. My V plus value is so-and-so, V minus is so-and-so. My positive supply is at 9 volts, my negative supply is at minus 9 volts. If I were to calculate the output voltage, I'm going to simply apply V plus minus V minus. Open loop gain is 10 to the power of 5. V plus would be 1.003234 minus 1.003213. If I were to ask you to give me a value, so my output voltage is coming around to be 0.02 volts. Now you need to understand that this value is less than the supply voltage, right? Therefore, my output value would be 0.02 volts, and it is not saturated.
सर तो अगर जो रेंज है उसके बीच,
the basic purpose of the amplifier is to not let the voltage be so small that it goes undetected. समझ रहे हो? If you check these two voltages, they were undetected, they were unnoticed. But the amplifier tried to give out some meaning out of this value. And that is the whole purpose of it, to not let the values go unnoticed. Lekin there are some cases, let's say your output came out to be 0 volts. In that case, the amplifier can't really help it. And these include that ideal operational amplifier will have an infinite input impedance, impedance as in resistance, meaning to say no current enters or leaves the inputs. It has infinite open loop gain, meaning to say there is only slight difference between the input voltages, and the output would be saturated. The output will have the same value as the supply voltage, something that we just discussed, right? Zero output impedance, meaning to say the whole of the output voltage is provided across the output load. The whole purpose of an amplifier is that it is converting the input to the output, and there is no loss of potential during the process. The amplifier has an infinite bandwidth, meaning to say all frequencies are amplified by the same factor. Infinite slew rate, they ask you about this in the exam. There is no delay between the changes in input and consequent changes in the output. Real operational amplifiers will deviate from the ideal, definitely. So there is some impedance as in resistance. However, they ask you about the properties of the ideal operational amplifier. Moving forward, you need to understand that the positive value has some voltage value connected to the non-inverting terminal. The negative value is connected to the earth, right? The positive supply line comes from the positive part of the battery, and the negative supply line comes from the negative part of the battery. The common link between the two sets of batteries is termed as the 0 volts or earth line. This forms the reference line from which all the input and output voltages are measured. Connecting the supplies in this way enables the output voltage to be either positive or negative. This is an important formula. A naught is an open loop gain, which is 10 to the power 5 for DC voltages. Right? You need to understand that if the V negative value, the input at the negative value is greater than the V positive value, which was in this case, your output becomes negative, and vice versa. An ideal operational amplifier is a comparator circuit, meaning to say it compares the voltage value at the positive and the negative inputs, and therefore decides the output